All right, so this is a video that will be specifically about scouting. I've touched on a lot of scouting things in different videos, but haven't done one specifically on scouting. And there was one kind of specific question about how I found certain players in the game on a recent video. And so that made me think that maybe going to some of the scouting stuff would be something worth doing a video on. So some of this will be basic scouting stuff, and then I'll try to go into some detail with how I find certain players, etc. But the scoutings, they're just some basic overall tips that I'll throw out there, though. So this is my scouting director in my current sim, Brian Bridges. I think he's like a Braves scouting director, maybe in real life. I don't know. I know he's been in the Braves organization before or recently. So, here's how his ratings are. I got him early on in this sim because he was outstanding at scouting amateurs, and I was in a rebuild. I wanted to rebuild through the draft, obviously. So this is why I got him. And he's overall, he's just really excellent at everything. Strong in all four areas. I went with highly favors tools. You'll see anything here. Let's go to the scouting available scouts, and I'll kind of show you the different areas that you can get there. So here, see, so you got guys, you have neutral, and then you have favors tools, or highly favors tools, or favors ability, you see here, or highly favors ability. Those are your five different things under amateur preference of the type of player that your scout prefers, and that will come into play when they're recommending players for draft picks, or kind of how they rate certain players, how they view certain players. So I went with highly favors tools, and the out of the park manual is pretty good at just telling you the difference between them. And basically, favoring tools, you're more likely to end up with a superstar, but also more likely to end up with a bust, right? Whereas if you favor ability, those guys are not going to have as high of a ceiling, but they're also not going to have as low of a floor. So, this was not something I was planning to do here, but this kind of popped in my mind. So in terms of international amateur free agents, like this is a guy that I signed a few years ago, just in 2022 when he was 16. And as you can see, like he's going to become a superstar. It looks like, he's very likely going to become a superstar at the not very likely. That's, but it looks like he could potentially, I'm not on my Scouts rating. He could very easily become a superstar here with this kind of rating. So, and then, but you'll also have misses. Another guy, this is a guy that I purchased on the free agent market in 2024, and he's just kind of bombed out, right? Like my scout thought he was a 70 overall back in 2024. 2027, he's a 45. He started to build some of his value back up, but not too convinced he's going to be able to do it after 3 years in a row in rookie ball. So, you'll have hits and misses no matter what your scout does. These guys aren't necessarily just because I have highly favors tools. But I do think that's kind of like the drastic, kind of outcomes you have where you can get the superstars, but you also, and, getting a superstar is rare. So you're going to have way more busts than superstars. But if you get, a superstar every couple of years in the draft or international free agents, et cetera, it's pretty nice to build a franchise upon. So that's kind of the basic overview of the scout. You also have the scouting budget, which you can set during the preseason or the offseason and the preseason. So you can see here, I've set my scout budget to $9 million. That's just for this year. I moved it way lower this year because I was investing heavily in my major league team. And so I bumped it down. I would say normally I keep that, I don't know, probably around 15-ish million, anywhere from 12 to 18 million, normally around 15. And I invest in Major League Scouting the least here pretty regularly. These percentages are off from what I was doing earlier. I rearranged it when I lowered my budget. But I keep Major League Scouting pretty low because I'm just pretty confident in the stats and being able to evaluate players that way through stats. And I can always request a specific report on a player if there's one I'm interested in. Minor League Scouting, I had bumped up higher earlier in the sim, a higher percentage of my budget, probably up around like 35% when I was making trades for, probably not that high, but over 25%, I think, when I was making a lot of trades in the rebuild for minor league players. Amateur scouting, I typically leave pretty high. I left it up around 35, even when I lowered my budget, still tried to make this the highest funded. International scouting, I normally keep really high too. In fact, after the first year or two of this rebuild, when I was done trading away major league pieces for minor league pieces, I lowered the minor league and really dumped a lot into international scouting, because that's how you'll get your scout to find just, well, one, he'll scout the individual, the amateurs, the 16-year-olds that are available every July 2nd, the old J2. But he'll also randomly find players as well if you bump this up higher. I lowered this for this year. I really drained this the international scouting budget this year so I could pump a decent amount into the other ones, keep those up. But let me think of a guy. You'll just occasionally get a guy your scout discovered on a trip, and normally they are just minor league filler, not very good. But then, I don't know, this is just a random guy that my scout discovered for free, out of nowhere, and he's looking like he could be an average major league center fielder, which is pretty good. And actually, his stats in the minors suggest he might even be able to come along better than that. So that's an example of a guy your scout can just find as an international free agent that can be helpful. You find one or two of those guys even over a decade. Sometimes you'll find a superstar player out there. So what do I mean when I say if I'm interested in a major league player, since let's just go to the Cubs, right? They're actually who I'm playing right now in the World Series. So if I'm interested in a player and I have my major league scouting low and I want to scout him, you can just go here and see he's got just an average scouting accuracy. And the scouting accuracy does not make a huge difference if it's between low and very high. I have not been able to find it. I've tried to find it again on the Out of the Park forums, but somebody did a study of the variance in the ratings when you have low versus high, and there wasn't a huge difference. The scouting did not get all that much more accurate. There was some difference, not a huge. But anyways, you can go here and request a scouting report. So with major league players, again, I'm not going to need individual reports on a lot of guys. I'm going to target specific players at specific times in trades or around the trade deadline, and if I feel like I want a higher scouting accuracy, which again doesn't make a huge difference, I'll just request a scouting report. No big deal. I'll do that for minor leagues sometimes too. The draft, I have enough pumped into it, and I've never really lowered it to see if the accuracy would go down more, but I always have really high accuracy for amateurs, and I don't individually assign my scout to any of them. I just pump 35% into that budget, and he's on it, and we're good to go come draft time. So that's but again, just keep in mind that request scouting report, and he'll normally get back to you within a few days. All right, and so another thing. So somebody asked recently, there are a couple players on my team. Let's go find. Well, here, let's go find. So, Baracierta, Raul Baracierta, I purchased him. And somebody had asked, how'd you purchase these players? And basically in this sim, for some reason, I don't normally do this, but I'm playing with every league turned on, which, it can tend to increase your load times and the size of the file. But I decided to do it for this one, go all out. But what this will do is, and this is one thing I really like about the scouting from this year, is went to the wrong page there. You go to your scout, right? Here's my man, Brian Bridges. And let's see, scout task list. Sorry, my wife texted me. She knows I'm doing a tutorial and she's texting me. What's up with that? No, just kidding. She's great. So here are all the players that my guy has scouted, and you can see some independent league players he scouted here, right? So all these independent league players, and I turn my independent budget way down, so he hasn't scouted as many randomly. But normally I'll have a huge list here of players, maybe at least triple this. So, here's a 28-year-old, and I'll just kind of scan here for potential. The only guy really maybe interesting is this guy rated at 35, but he is 28, so I don't see myself buying him. But you can often find, decent role players. I found a few really good players, 20 to 23 who have turned into decent prospects for me. One of them is one of my main starting pitchers right now, but this guy's crushing the independent league. And what you can do is here, you can go to actions and you can purchase the player for $250,000. And that player then becomes a player in your minor league system. It's basically like a minor league contract, but you purchase it from the independent league for $250,000. So in your scout task list, you can just go, and I sort it by the level and just look at the independent league. And, it's not very often that I purchase players, maybe once or twice a season. And So that's basically how I've found guys like Baracierta, and then randomly, I found this guy Livian Delgado there too. Most guys are not this quality. He's the only like star quality player I found. All the other guys are like high minors guys or maybe bench roll guys in the majors, platoon guys, stuff like that. So anyways, that's some scouting info. Hope that helps. Any questions, let me know.